What happens when Hollywood's most unpredictable tough guy sits down with late-night television's sharpest satirist and everything goes completely off the rails? Well, you're about to find out, because what started as a routine promotional interview turned into one of the most explosive confrontations in late-night history. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment, because this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about live television. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert was supposed to be a standard Tuesday night affair. Mark Wahlberg was scheduled to promote his latest action thriller, and the production team expected the usual banter about Boston workouts and maybe a few laughs about his past as Marky Mark. However, what they got instead was a powder keg that had been waiting to explode for years. Colbert, known for his razor-sharp political commentary and his ability to make even the most seasoned politicians squirm, had done his homework. But this wasn't going to be about politics, at least not initially. The tension began building the moment Wahlberg walked onto the set. His usual confident swagger seemed different that night, more aggressive, like a boxer entering the ring rather than an actor promoting a movie. The studio audience could sense something was off from the opening handshake. Colbert extended his hand with his trademark grin, but Wahlberg's grip lingered just a beat too long. His eyes locked onto Colbert with an intensity that made the audience shift uncomfortably in their seats. Every micro-expression, every subtle sign, suggested this interview was about to become something entirely unexpected. As they settled into their chairs, Colbert launched into his usual opening pleasantries, but Wahlberg cut him off mid-sentence. "You know what, Stephen, let's skip the small talk tonight. I've got some things I need to get off my chest." The host's eyebrows shot up, partly amused, partly concerned. This wasn't in the pre-show notes. "Well, Mark, you've certainly got my attention, and I'm sure our audience is curious too. What's on your mind?" Colbert leaned back, adopting his classic interviewer pose, though there was a weariness in his eyes that veteran talk show watchers rarely saw. Wahlberg leaned forward, his Boston accent becoming more pronounced as his voice grew heated. "I'm tired of people like you sitting behind these desks making jokes about working class people, about guys like me who came from nothing. You think it's all a big joke, don't you? The struggles, the neighborhoods we came from, the fights we had to fight just to survive." The studio fell silent. This wasn't playful ribbing anymore, it was genuine anger radiating from Wahlberg. Colbert's smile began to fade as he realized this wasn't a stunt. "Mark, I think there might be some misunderstanding here," Colbert replied, his tone more measured. "I've never made light of anyone's struggles, especially not yours. I've always admired your journey from Dorchester to Hollywood, an incredible American success story." But Wahlberg wasn't buying it. His hands gripped the armrests tightly as he continued his unexpected tirade. "Success story? You mean the story where you and your writers get to make jokes about the kid who got in trouble, who made mistakes, who had to claw his way out of a place where most people never make it out? That success story?" The camera operators picked up signals from the control room, unsure whether to keep rolling or cut to commercial. This was uncharted territory for the Late Show, and everyone in the studio could feel the electricity of a moment that was about to explode into something much bigger. Colbert's quick wit, usually his greatest asset, seemed momentarily stunned by the raw emotion and accusation coming from his guest. "I want to understand what's really bothering you here, Mark," Colbert said, leaning forward slightly. "Because I think we're talking about two very different things. Can you help me understand what specifically I've said or done that's upset you?" Wahlberg's laugh was bitter, devoid of humor. "Oh, you want specifics. Let's talk about specifics." His eyes burned with intensity, reminiscent of someone who had lived through real street fights. "3 weeks ago, you did that whole segment about Boston accents. Had your writers do these ridiculous impressions. Got your audience laughing at how we talk. You think that's harmless comedy, Stephen? Let me tell you what that really is." The host shifted uncomfortably. He hadn't expected this level of personal attack. "Mark, that was just a light-hearted bit about regional dialects," Colbert protested. "We've done segments on Southern accents, New York accents. It's not targeting anyone specifically." But Wahlberg's voice cracked with emotion. "Every kid I grew up with talks like that. Every guy working construction in Saugus. Every woman waiting tables in Dorchester. When you make fun of how we sound, you're making fun of us. You're telling your educated audience that we're the punchline, that our voices don't matter." The studio was silent now. This was no longer entertainment. It was raw, unfiltered pain being broadcast live. Colbert, usually quick with a response, seemed genuinely caught off guard by the depth of Wahlberg's anger. "I understand you feel hurt by that segment," he said carefully, "but you're reading malicious intent where none existed. Comedy has always played with stereotypes and regional differences. It's not about superiority or looking down on anyone." Wahlberg slammed his hand on the desk, startling both Colbert and the audience. "There it is, stereotypes. You admitted it. You reduce entire communities to stereotypes for laughs. Do you have any idea what it's like to walk into a business meeting in Hollywood and be judged the second you open your mouth?" The cameras caught Colbert's face as he processed this unexpected emotional outburst. His usual armor of wit and charm seemed inadequate for this moment. "I think you're conflating two issues here," he said gently. "Regional humor and systematic discrimination are not the same thing." But Wahlberg's Boston accent grew thicker as his anger intensified. "So when your audience laughs at people who sound like my mother, like my brothers, like everyone I grew up with, that's just innocent fun. When you do impressions of blue-collar workers talking politics, that's just comedy." The mention of specific segments hit Colbert hard. His professional composure was starting to crack. Those segments were about political discourse and media literacy. He clarified, not mocking working people. "If you can't see that distinction, then maybe the problem isn't with my comedy." The words hung in the air like a challenge thrown down in a street fight. Wahlberg's face darkened. For a moment, the entire studio held its breath. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper, carrying more menace than his shouting had. "So now I'm the problem, the guy who calls out a privileged comedian for looking down on regular people. That's the problem." Colbert leaned back, his own composure finally starting to crack. "Mark, I need you to sit back down," he said firmly. "This is getting out of hand, and we both know it." "Out of hand?" Wahlberg laughed bitterly. "You want to see out of hand? You want to see what happens when someone who actually lived through real struggle gets tired of listening to privileged comedians mock his people?" Just then, the production team made their move. The security coordinator, who had been nervously watching from the wings, started moving toward the stage. But Wahlberg caught the movement in his peripheral vision and whirled around. "Don't even think about it," he snapped at the approaching security. "I'm not done talking to your boss here." Colbert, now standing and matching Wahlberg's height and intensity, responded, "Actually, Mark, I think you are done. This is my show, my people, and you're making my audience uncomfortable. I'm going to ask you to leave." The words hit like a thunderclap. Wahlberg's eyes widened in disbelief, then narrowed to slits. "You're kicking me off. You're actually kicking me off your show because I called you out for being exactly what you are." Colbert shot back, "I'm asking you to leave because you're behaving like a bully. You came on my show under false pretenses, and now you're attacking me personally and intimidating my staff. That's not passionate discourse. That's just bad behavior." The studio fell into an eerie silence. Even the camera operators seemed frozen, unsure whether to keep rolling or cut away from what was clearly an unprecedented situation in late-night television history. Wahlberg took a step closer to Colbert, close enough that the host could probably smell his cologne. Bad behavior? You want to talk about bad behavior? How about spending years making jokes about people you've never met, communities you've never lived in, struggles you've never faced? How about building your career on looking down at people like me? The security team began flanking Wahlberg, ready to physically remove him if necessary. The lead security officer, a professional accustomed to handling tense situations, spoke in a calm but firm voice. "Mr. Wahlberg, we need you to come with us now." For a moment it looked like Wahlberg might resist. The tension in the studio was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Then suddenly he laughed. Not the bitter laugh from earlier, but something that sounded almost relieved. "You know what, Stephen? This has been more honest than any interview you've done in years. At least now your audience knows exactly who they're really watching every night." With that, Mark Wahlberg walked off the stage, flanked by security, leaving behind one of the most explosive confrontations in television history. As he disappeared into the wings, the studio remained in stunned silence. Stephen Colbert stood alone behind his desk, trying to process what had just happened. The cameras kept rolling for a few more seconds before finally cutting to commercial. But the damage was done. In less than 20 minutes, a routine promotional interview had become a career, defining moment for both men, a raw display of class resentment and personal animosity that would be dissected and debated for years to come. So, what do you think really drove Mark Wahlberg to explode like that on live television? Was this years of built-up resentment finally boiling over, or was there something deeper going on? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more explosive celebrity stories that you won't see anywhere else.